me, two squads. I think I'm gonna take them. I'm gonna box up. Okay. Hey, I'm Khalil Underwood, and I'm gonna be reading Wimpy Kid to you. I have a vast collection of Wimpy Kid books. I first started reading when I was in second grade, and ever since then, I've just been in love with these books. But today, I have a new book, which is called The Getaway. And that would have been my 11th Wimpy Kid book, but I lost the long haul. Roger Rules, The Last Straw, and the book we're going to be reading today is The Getaway. To Annie. December. The worst part of having someone tell you about their vacation is trying to pretend you're happy for them, because no one wants to hear about all the fun they didn't have. The only vacations I want to hear about are the ones where things went wrong. That way, I don't feel bad for missing out. Well, my family just got back from vacation, and believe me, if I could have stayed home, I would have. But I didn't have a choice. A few weeks ago, this vacation wasn't even supposed to happen. We were just having a normal December, and I was really looking forward to Christmas. But Mom and Dad were getting all stressed out about everything we had to do to get ready for the holidays. We were way behind on decorating the house, and nothing was going the way it was supposed to. I'm sure we could have gotten our act together in time for Christmas, but one night an ad came on TV that totally turned our holidays upside down. The commercial was for this place called Isla de Corrales, which is where Mom and Dad went for their honeymoon. And the reason I know that this is because every time an ad for that place comes on TV, the two of them get all kissy-faced. It makes me uncomfortable thinking about Mom and Dad before they had us kids, and I wouldn't have to if Mom didn't break out their honeymoon album every year on their anniversary. The night after that ad came on, Mom and Dad made an announcement. They said that this year we were going to skip Christmas and all go to Isla de Corrales instead. When I asked how we were going to get our gifts to the resort, Mom said the trip was our gift. I thought that sounded like a terrible idea, and I was surprised Dad was on board with it. He usually doesn't like to spend a lot of money, and I was sure this resort was going to cost a fortune, but he said he was sick of the cold weather and he wanted to escape to someplace warm. Personally, I don't have a problem with cold weather. In fact, generally speaking, the worse it is outside, the happier I am. I figured Manny and Roger would help me talk some sense into Mom and Dad, and we'd put a stop to this idea, but those guys weren't any help at all. So I had to accept that we weren't going to have a normal Christmas at home. But what I really didn't like was that we had to fly to this place. I'd never been on a plane before, and I wasn't crazy about the idea of locking myself in a metal tube. Nobody else seemed worried, though, and 2 weeks later, on a night when we should have been hanging up our stockings and sitting around the fire watching Christmas specials, we were packing our suitcases for this island getaway. We left the house around 8 o'clock on the morning of Christmas Eve. Dad was pretty uptight because he wanted to leave an hour earlier, but Mom said he was being ridiculous and we'd get to the airport in plenty of time. It was only about 20 degrees outside, but Roger had already dressed for vacation. It turned out Dad was right. We should have left earlier. Apparently, Christmas Eve is one of the busiest travel days of the year, so the roads were choked with families driving to see their relatives, and nobody really seemed to be in Christmas spirit either. What made things a lot worse was when it started to snow. After that, things slowed to a crawl. Mom and Dad started arguing over what time we should have left, and Dad almost missed the exit for the airport. He had to cut across 3 lanes of traffic, which didn't look easy. When we reached the airport, the main parking lot was full. That meant we had to park in the economy lot, which was pretty far away. Dad said he dropped the rest of us off at the curb with all the luggage and then come meet us after he parked. When we got to the passenger drop-off area, it was completely chaos. We tried to unload our bags, but the chops weren't letting anyone stop for more than 30 seconds, and that just stressed everyone out and made things worse. I had to get back in the van so I could help Dad with the rest of the bags. Ordinarily, that kind of thing would have been Roderick's job, but since he was dressed for 80-degree weather, he got out of it. He was lucky he did too. When we got to the gate for the economy lot, Dad couldn't reach the ticket from his window, so he made me get out of the car to grab it. Unfortunately, I didn't notice that there was a giant slush puddle on my side of the car until it was too late. After we parked, we rolled our bags to the nearest shuttle stop, which wasn't a lot of fun. The sign said the shuttle bus to the main terminal came every 10 minutes, but there was no room for us in the bus shelter, so we had to wait outside in the freezing cold. 20 minutes went by without a bus, and Dad started getting really anxious about the time. He said we were just going to have to walk to the terminal, which was about a mile away. I would have tried to convince Dad to wait a little longer, but my sock was starting to turn to ice, and I didn't want to get frostbite. Sure enough, once we got about 100 feet from the shelter, the shuttle bus pulled into the parking lot. We tried to get the driver to stop, but he just blew right past us. So we ran to the shuttle bus stop, but we didn't make it back in time. Now Dad was really worried about missing our flight. I told him maybe missing the flight wouldn't be the worst thing to happen, but he didn't seem to be in the mood to hear what I had to say. By the time we got to the terminal, we were both soaking wet and miserable. So when a pickup truck almost hit us in a crosswalk, it made Dad really mad, and he let the driver know. That just made the driver mad, and he pulled his truck over and stepped out of his vehicle. We didn't stick around long enough to talk things over with this guy. We ran in the opposite direction and blended in with some people standing on the sidewalk until the coast was clear. Dad told me I could learn a lesson from this, which was to never lose your temper and do something stupid. But I took that away a different lesson. When Heffleys get in trouble, Heffleys run. The rest of the family was waiting inside the entrance to the terminal. Mom wanted to know what took us so long, and Dad wanted to know why she hadn't gotten in line with Manny and Roger and held a place for us. It took 20 minutes for us to get through the check-in line, but when Dad put our big suitcase on the scale, the person at the counter said it was too heavy and it was going to cost extra money to check it. But Dad said the airline was ripping us off and we weren't going to give them an extra nickel, so we took some clothes out of the suitcase and stuffed them into our carry-on bags. By the time we got everything sorted out, we had a half hour to get to our gate before our flight started boarding. And when we got to the security area, it was a total zoo. There were 2 lines, one for families and one for business travelers. I guess Dad usually gets to go through the business lane when he travels for work, so he didn't seem to be too happy about being stuck with the rest of us in the family lane. Anytime you add the word family to something, you know things are going to be bad. And trust me, I've been to enough family restaurants to know what I'm talking about. We waited in the security line a long time, and we finally made it to the front. But then some kids a few rows behind us started pressing the buttons on the poles that hold the barriers together. All of a sudden, there was nothing keeping the line separated, and for a second, no one moved. But then things completely fell apart. By the time the security agents got all the zip barriers reconnected, we ended up at the back of the line, and the family with the kid who caused all the trouble was at the front. Now, Mom and Dad were really stressed because our flight was supposed to leave at any minute. Dad begged one of the security agents to let us go to the front, but he didn't seem too sympathetic. I thought we were going to miss our flight, so I didn't really see the point of going to security. But Dad said sometimes they leave the gate open until the last second, and we might still make it. We finally got to the front of the line, and we put our bags on a conveyor belt. Then we took off our coats and shoes and put them into some plastic bins. Manny saw that the rest of us were doing, and he started taking off his clothes too. Luckily, Mom noticed in time and stopped him before he could go any further. Manny wasn't finished causing problems, though apparently he thought the conveyor belt was some kind of ride and he was really upset when he found out that it wasn't. The people behind us were getting frustrated we weren't moving, but we were being held up by the guy in front of us. He had to remove everything he had on that was metal, and it was taking him forever. Roderick told me these machines can see through your clothes, and then someone checks a screen to make sure you're not trying to sneak by with anything dangerous. All I can say is I wouldn't want to be the person with that job. It turns out the X-ray machine that sees through your clothes is only for grown-ups, and kids go through a medical detector instead. Still, I wasn't going to take any chances. Once we got through security, we grabbed our stuff from the conveyor belt and took off. Our gate was down on the lower level, so we had to take the escalator. We couldn't even do that without causing a major problem. Manny's stuffed animal got stuck in the bottom of the escalator, and he had to press the emergency stop button so Mom could pull it free. Dad checked his watch and said we might still make it, so we ran for our gate. But the gate was all the way at the other end of the terminal, so we knew we couldn't make it in time on foot. Just then, a cart for handicapped passengers came along and Dad stopped in and asked the driver if we could hitch a ride. The rest of us got on board before she could say no. After that, it was smooth sailing. The terminal was pretty crowded, but people moved out of our way when they heard us coming. The driver dropped us off at our gate, but the door was closed. I thought that meant we had missed our flight and we could turn around and enjoy a nice Christmas Eve at home. But it turned out the flight was delayed, so all that stress was for nothing. The reason the flight was delayed was because of the bad weather, and it was going to be another hour before we got on the plane. We looked for a place to sit down in the boarding area, but people were hogging the seats. Mom told me that once we got on the plane, we'd be in the air for about 6 hours, which was news to me. I asked her for some money and I bought a couple of magazines, some snacks, and headphones at a shop near our gate. The only thing I needed that the store didn't have was socks. My right sock was still soaking wet from stepping in that puddle, so I went into the bathroom to wring it out in the sink. When I was done, my sock was still damp and I didn't really want to put it back on my foot. The bathroom had one of those high-powered hand dryers and that gave me an idea. I couldn't wait to get back home and start making some money on this idea. I figured I could make a killing on rainy days. The only problem with the hand dryer in the airport bathroom was that it was too powerful. My sock started smoking and then it went flying. I decided I'd just get a new pair of socks at the resort because there was no way I was going to wear something I had to fish out of a urinal. When I came back from the restroom, they were making an announcement at our gate. I figured they were ready to start boarding the plane, but they were just letting us know there was another delay. And it went on like that for the rest of the day. Apparently, this storm was causing problems everywhere, and the plane we were supposed to fly out was stuck at some other airport. I was starting to worry that my electronic device was going to run out of juice while I was on the plane, so I looked for a place to charge it, but I guess everyone else was thinking the same thing. The only available outlet was in an awkward place, but when your battery is at 15%, you gotta do what you gotta do. Our plane finally arrived at the gate, and all the passengers who were on it got off. But if flying is supposed to be fun, you never know it from the way the people look. The gate agent got on the loudspeaker and said we'd be boarding shortly. Then she said our flight was overbooked and they needed a few volunteers to give up their seats. She said that whoever volunteered first would get $300 and a free night at the airport hotel. I didn't need to hear another word. I got to the desk before she even finished with her announcement and said I was her guy. Unfortunately, Mom wouldn't let me volunteer and nobody else stepped up either. So the gate agent increased the offer to $500 and some woman snapped it up right away. I just hope she enjoyed spending my money. After that, the agent made another announcement. She said the flight crew on our plane had worked too many hours because of all the delays, and we had to wait for a replacement crew to come in before we could take off. Now, everyone at our gate was mad because what was supposed to be an early flight was turning into an overnight one.